Hello and welcome once again to the video. In this one I will be once again continuing my look at the 2023 Formula One World Championship. So I have been looking at every round throughout the season as I did last year. Just a casual look from a fan's perspective. Basically, I've been a fan for many years. And this is just my view of the race as a fan. Maybe I shouldn't say casual fan because I have been a fan for about 43 years now, I think. 43, 44 years. So I've been making a point of watching every race since Monaco 1982. But I do remember the odd race before that, normally the British Grand Prix. So I think the British Grand Prix of 81 and 80. And the odd one in the 70s as well, I think I might have watched, because my brother was following Formula One at the time. But I've watched every race, or tried to watch every race anyway, since Monaco 1982. Anyway, let's go. So this one was round 20. And where was it? Oh, Brazil. Yes, of course. Brazil. At the Interlagos circuit in Sao Paulo. So what I shall do is my usual routine. The finishing order. I shall list the finishing order down here. And then the top 10 in the Drivers' Championship. And then the rundown of the Constructors' Championship. And then I'll briefly talk about the race. Right, not a full rundown, just my thoughts on the race. Okay, let's go. Verstappen. Norris. Alonso. Perez. Stroll. Sainz. Gasly. Let's just check. Focus. Okay. Hamilton. Tsunoda. Ocon. Sargent. Ricardo. Piastri. Well, put a little line there because these guys didn't finish. Russell. Bottas. Joe. Magnussen. championship positions. 524. Wow. Perez 258. 226. 192. 170. 156. 'Bit of a mess of that. 87. 63. Okay. Now the Constructors' Championship. Red Bull. Mercedes. 400 points behind. Ferrari is 362. McLaren 282. Aston Martin 261. Alpine 108. Williams 28. AlphaTauri 21. Alfa Romeo 16. Yes, 12. Okay, so what did we think of, or what did I think of that race? Let me just have a drink. Well, before I forget, let me just put down the fastest lap. Lando Norris. For starters, look at all those retirements. That's incredible. That reminds me of the 80s, basically. In actual fact, 14 finishes in a Grand Prix in the 80s would have actually been quite a lot, even though they had 26 starters, because cars retired all the time back then for all manner of reasons. That was a very enjoyable race, not just because of the last few laps. I enjoyed seeing Norris attack Verstappen. It was fleeting, just like in Silverstone, when Norris was battling Verstappen for the first sort of 4 or 5 corners of the first lap. And here he was doing it in the first stint, wasn't he? I don't know, 10 laps in or something. He closed in on Verstappen, nearly got past Verstappen. So close. And I was really thinking that was going to be, this was going to be it. Norris was going to get his first win, and Verstappen was actually going to get beaten. But wasn't to be. But despite that, I still found it a very enjoyable race. The Interlagos track is a great circuit to watch cars on. They really look fast. even on TV. I've been to many Grand Prix, and of course they always look super fast and aggressive in person, and they never look anywhere near as fast or aggressive when you're watching on TV. But the Interlagos circuit is one of those where they do look fast, partly because it's got undulating, it's got a lot of banking, basically a little bit of undulation of course, but also a lot of banking, and it's quite a short circuit, so it feels it just feels like they're going super fast, and you get lots of overtaking at this track, which is very good as well. So yeah, very enjoyable. The sprint race, as many of you will know, I'm not a big fan of sprint races, but I still watch it. I still prefer it to practice sessions. I just wish they would lengthen the main Grand Prix by say 10 laps, rather than have a sort of pretend Grand Prix on the Saturday. But that was very enjoyable. Lots of overtaking, lots of people taking it very seriously. The teams and the drivers take it very seriously. Obviously there are points available, but not many points. So I'm often surprised at how competitive and aggressive the drivers are, considering there are not many points available, and considering that none of them are in the championship apart from Verstappen. So but yeah, that was a good race, won by Verstappen, with of course Norris in second place. And it was a repeat here, basically. Norris was on pole, wasn't he, for the sprint race? Verstappen was second. Here Verstappen was on pole, Norris was 7th on the grid, but he was elevated to 6th with Leclerc's problem on the formation lap. It's not really been announced what that problem was, possibly to do with hydraulics. We don't really know. But anyway, he definitely had a problem. That seems to be agreed upon. It wasn't just a mistake, because drivers can make mistakes. I've seen it happen. Didn't Michael Schumacher did that in the 1996 Monaco Grand Prix, didn't he, in the Ferrari, I believe, his first year at Ferrari, and he crashed on the formation lap, and from what I remember, that was his mistake. That was all his mistake. Anyway, so it can happen. That's Norris's 2nd place this year, plus, well, 7 if you include the sprint race, but I don't like to include the sprint race obviously in Grand Prix statistics, and thankfully nor does anybody else, which is good, because it shouldn't be included. Otherwise we would be saying that Piastri is a Grand Prix winner because he won a sprint race. So yeah, they do keep those separate, which is good. Now unfortunately for Norris, all the way up to 2nd place, great, and he drove a fantastic race and was very close, but he still got beaten for Verstappen, and it does mean that it's his 13th podium without a win, and that is joint top for the record of most number of podiums without a win, alongside Nick Heidfeld, who was racing 20 years ago, a German driver. He also, I didn't know that he held that record. I found that out during this race. I didn't know Heidfeld had that record, but I'm not surprised, because I know that I remember seeing him notch up quite a few podiums, and of course never won a race. So Norris, unfortunately, very soon could well be on his own with that record, number of podiums without a win. Surely that's going to come soon. Probably not this year, unless Verstappen has a problem. But yeah, what really happened in that race? Well, of course, the main thing, 2 main things. First thing was the accident, that multi-pronged accident at the start. And the second thing was, of course, the last few laps with Alonso and Perez. With that crash at the start, you really had to study that. I had to rewind that quite a few times to see exactly what happened there. strangely, even though it was Hulkenberg that had the coming together with Albon, it was actually Magnussen, Hulkenberg's teammate, that retired. Magnussen clearly drove up into Hulkenberg, probably not realising Albon was the other side of Hulkenberg, sort of squashed Hulkenberg and Albon together. Albon hits Hulkenberg and spins into Magnussen. So Magnussen got the just desserts there for causing the accident to begin with. And then I think it was Albon's, Magnussen then hit the back of Piastri, which caused him problems that lasted the rest of the race. And Albon's tyre wasn't Magnussen, it was Albon's tyre came off his front right, I believe, from what I can remember, and went onto Hulkenberg's car and seemed to get tied up in Hulkenberg's bodywork. It stayed with Hulkenberg for a while, the tyre, before flicking off. It almost looked like Hulkenberg then went over the tyre and flicked it up in the air, and it landed on Ricciardo's rear wing, which caused him problems for the rest of the race as well. So we had Magnussen and Albon out, and we had Piastri and Ricciardo effectively out. And then there was a red flag and a restart. And Norris had done so well to get up to second place. Of course, he kept that second place for the restart, so it wasn't a waste. But that was fantastic manoeuvre by Norris. And the Mercedes looked really good right at the start as well. They got past the two highly placed Aston Martins that were so highly placed on the grid due to the rain in qualifying. Or were they? Because they did do very well during practice and qualifying, and they did do very well throughout the whole race. So maybe they were justified, third and fourth on the grid, the Aston Martins. But that was quite something, Albon. Now, it has been pointed out to me, I describe, I've sort of given Albon the nickname 7-Eleven because he either finishes 7th or 11th. And it was pointed out to me recently that he hasn't finished 7th or 11th for a while. But I don't know. I always picture him either finishing 7th or 11th. Maybe it was last year he finished 7th and 11th a lot. But anyway, he's still part of that. I can still call him 7-Eleven because I think he retired from this race about 7 seconds into the Grand Prix. So I can still call him 7-Eleven for that reason. Look at that, Ricard. Dear me, why didn't anybody tell me? I forgot to put the O on Ricciardo's name. I think calling him Ricard is probably worse than these people who strangely call him Ricciardo. People that people in the paddock who know him very well, like Christian Horner, and insist on calling him Ricciardo. And I don't think they're being funny. I think that's genuinely how they think his name is pronounced. Very strange. Anyway, that was worse, leaving off the 0, or the O, I should say. So, what about the rest of the race? There were things that happened in the race, of course. The Mercedes gradually fell back. The Aston Martins gradually moved forwards. Stroll gradually moved back up to the front. It was very much about the Aston Martins who had started high up, 3rd and 4th. They fell down, especially Stroll, and then gradually throughout the race pulled themselves back up again to almost finish where they started. They were 3rd and 5th in the end. So a really good, strong performance by Aston Martin, with Stroll only finishing 6 seconds behind Alonso. Gasly came up from 15th to 7th. That was a fantastic performance. Sainz, the usual lackluster Ferrari, not lackluster by Sainz, lackluster by Ferrari. The performance there. Hamilton slipped down, the car slow on the straights, slow in the corners, loads of rear wing to try and compensate for their woes, which of course made them even slower. Tyres wearing out after just a few laps, all-round disaster for a car that finished second in the last 2 races, albeit with 1 disqualification. Ocon, he came from 14th to 10th with 3 pit stops. Hulkenberg, I can't really say he recovered to 12th because he effectively finished last, because Ricciardo and Piastri were a whole lap behind when the race was restarted, and they came out of the pit lane a whole lap behind. And I'm surprised they didn't think that. I'm surprised their teams didn't think of a way of retiring them. Maybe they used it as a practice session, but certainly not a practice session for Las Vegas, which will be completely different, and Abu Dhabi. So I don't know what they were practicing for necessarily. I think there's a rule where you're not allowed to retire a car for no reason, basically. That certainly used to be a rule. I'm not sure if it still is, but the FIA don't like you pulling cars out of the competition, therefore making it less of a show just because you want to protect the car. But maybe that's not such a strict rule now. Or maybe it is, and that's why they were not retired, but it seemed a bit pointless, Ricciardo and Piastri going around as they did at the back of the field, miles behind everybody else. Sargent, 11th place. He's finished in 11th place a few times. But I'm not getting him confused with Albon. Albon has finished in 11th a number of times as well. Tsunoda did well to collect points again. He scored, I think, 10 points in the last few races. As AlphaTauri continue their meteoric rise through the ranks over here. That's an interesting battle. I suppose that's an interesting battle, isn't it? I suppose that's an interesting battle. As is that one. So, yeah, there was stuff happening in the race, but it was overshadowed by the thing that happened at the start, and also the fantastic finish with Alonso and Perez. Perez catching Alonso, hounding him, nearly getting past. It must have been damaging Perez's tyres horribly, being stuck behind Alonso for so long, trying to get past. Then with 2 laps to go, he gets past, only for Alonso to get back past him again with some great lines through the corners. Fantastic stuff by Alonso, how he was lining up his car for some of the corners in order to get, thinking about the next corner, always thinking about the next corner or 2 or 3 corners later. Great stuff by Alonso, and then great stuff by Perez to stay in such close contention as well, and nearly pipping Alonso on the line, which would have taken an effort. Normally you would overtake someone into the first corner, not across the line. So for Perez to be able to do that was also noteworthy. But that was a fantastic drive, and it was much needed, not just because of Aston Martin slipping in the last sort of 5 or 6 races, but also because of all the talk of Alonso supposedly, which he has debunked fully, but rumours of him being linked to other teams, most notably Red Bull. He fully debunked those, as you might expect, but I believed him. There's no reason to run away from Aston Martin, just because they've had a rough few races. So this was perfect timing. Really good for Aston Martin, and I'm pleased for them. That was good. Another fantastic performance for Verstappen, his 52nd win. Amazing stuff, that. There is an unfortunate statistic for Alonso in that he has now finished on the podium 9 times at Interlagos, and he's never won there. And apparently that's a record. That's a new record. The most number of podiums at a single track without winning a race at that track. So, Norris has got an unfortunate record, shared with Heidfeld now, and Alonso has got an unfortunate record as well. But that's just the way it is. So what are we thinking about in the championship? See, I look at that. When I wrote the 524, I sort of whispered, wow. But I have to say that number still doesn't really mean a lot to me, because it was 2010 that they changed the point system from 10 points for a win to 25. And it completely changed everything. I used to keep records years ago. I used to keep records of, before there was an internet, basically, I used to keep records of who had the most points, who had the most wins, poles, races, fastest laps, but then also what countries, the ranking of all the countries in those fields, and also the circuits, who had the best results. So there's so many different statistics you can do, and I used to keep track of them all. And the points one, in 2010, I had pretty much stopped doing it because you could find out this information online. So I pretty much stopped keeping track of it, but I was still keeping track, I think, of points, wins and poles at that point. But I abandoned it all in 2010 because of this jump to 25 points for a win. It just made a mockery then of, Alain Prost fought hard, won 4 championships, won 51 races for his 798.5 points, I think it was, off the top of my head. 798.5. Well, I think Lewis Hamilton has had about, I don't know, 6,000 points or something. It suddenly made a mockery of the record books as regards points. So I look at 524, and it's just a big number to me, because I'm still thinking that 100 points is impressive, because I'm still thinking back to prior 2010. And if a driver scored 100 points, well, I remember the most points, I think, the person who held the record was Prost in 1988. He had 105 points. He didn't win the championship. Was it 104 points because of the best 11 results rule? That'll take too long to explain if you don't know the best 11 results rule. But anyway, although it's pretty self-explanatory, best 11 results were counted towards the championship. But anyway, he actually had more points than Senna in 1988. But Senna had more points if you just count the top 11 positions. And I think Prost had 104 points, and that was the best, I think, all the way up till 2010 when it changed, I think. So that would be a target, the century, the 100 points would be the big thing. 524 is probably the first time anyone's scored over 500, but it's only been 13 years since the point system changed. So I still haven't really got my head around having so many points awarded. A great battle here. Norris has taken another scalp. He's got past Sainz. It's lucky Alonso chose this race to recover, because it's kept his nose just in front of Norris. At this rate, I wouldn't be surprised if Norris passes Hamilton for 3rd place. That would be incredible, when after about 5 or 6 races, he wasn't even in the top 10, Norris. And there's a chance he might finish 3rd in the championship if this race was anything to go by. So fantastic. It's great seeing Norris do so well. And then you've got here, Williams have got to watch out, because AlphaTauri are closing in, and that's worth, I don't know, $10 million, something like that, the difference between 7th and 8th in the championship. So AlphaTauri pulled themselves off last place, 10th place, I think a couple of races ago, and they're continuing to score points. Of course, Ricciardo had that 5th place, I think, in Austin, or was it 7th? Possibly 7th, I think. Qualified 5th, finished 7th, I think. So AlphaTauri could, well, as it stands at the moment, I would say they are going to get past Williams, because Williams are not doing anything at the moment. Because unfortunately Albon is mostly finishing 11th rather than 7th. So and the occasional 14th. So yeah, Williams are not really doing much at the moment. So I'm sure AlphaTauri will get past them. Aston Martin and McLaren, that'll be very interesting. But I do believe McLaren have got enough of a gap there that they'll be able to stay ahead of Aston Martin. And Mercedes have probably got, there's only 2 rounds left. So I'm sure Mercedes have got enough of a gap as well to stay ahead of Ferrari. Well, let's have a bit of a drink. That gap, by the way, between Alonso and Perez here was just 0.053 of a second, 53 thousandths of a second. It reminds me of the 1986 Spanish Grand Prix at Jerez, when I think it was 0.016 of a second between Senna and Mansell as they crossed the line, and that was for the win as well. It was photo finish. Senna pipped Mansell. And then, of course, 1982 in Austria, when, was it De Angelis pipped Rosberg, or was it Rosberg pipping De Angelis? I can't remember which way round that one went, but one of them just pipped the other one in a photo finish. Great stuff. Shame it was only for 3rd place, but never mind. Now, this is a strange thing, but if I was Christian Horner, there's a part of me, don't know what size, what percentage of me it would be, but there would definitely be a part of me that would be happy to not win the remaining 2 races, both of them. The reason being, me personally, I would think like this. They've won all but 1 race. And I think it would be psychologically damaging, basically, if I was Christian Horner and the team in general, if you end up winning 21 out of 22 races. I mean, that's soul destroying. That's just like McLaren in 1988. They won 15 out of 16. And so that one that they missed, that they were leading up until 2 laps before the end of the race, when Senna crashed with a back marker, you lose 1 race, and that's going to haunt you. And that could happen to Red Bull. If they were to lose in Las Vegas, which they could do because it's a totally unknown circuit, if they were to lose, then they could say, oh, well, okay, you know, even if we'd won in Vegas, we lost in Singapore. Even if we'd won in Singapore, we lost in Vegas. So it's okay, you win 20 out of 22. But to win 21 out of 22, I think would be devastating. It would irritate me anyway, if I was Horner or anybody else in that team. But at the same time, you want to win every available race. So I think the bigger part of me would still want to win those 2 remaining races. But certainly there is a percentage, probably 37% of me would be happy to lose 1, just so that it's not just 1 that you lost in the whole season. Anyway, I think that's my video done. These races are getting a little bit repetitive now, with Verstappen winning not by much from Norris. But that was still, as ever, an entertaining Brazilian Grand Prix. I just really want Verstappen to lose, because it doesn't matter who's doing it. It's not because I'm anti-Verstappen, because I just want F1 to grow in popularity. And it is growing, but it will grow even faster if you don't have one driver constantly winning. It's the same when Hamilton was winning all the time. I'm a Hamilton fan, but I was aware that that was potentially damaging the sport. So it's only been 2 years since we had a tight championship battle. So it's not all that long ago, but memories are short with casual fans, and casual fans might get turned off by this Verstappen dominance. But despite that, it is getting more and more popular all the time, thanks to Netflix and all the American Grand Prix, and also the Brad Pitt film coming up. I think mostly due to Netflix, I think. But yeah, it would go absolute. It would rocket skywards if we could get Norris winning some races, you know, or some wheel banging stuff between Verstappen and Hamilton. Anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to subscribe, please do so. Or if you'd like to like or comment on the video. And I will see you in the next video. Failing that, hopefully I'll see you at the next Grand Prix video, which of course is Las Vegas in a couple of weeks' time. But hopefully I'll be seeing you, or you'll be seeing me in some of my videos before that. Anyway, that's goodbye for now. Thank you very much.